woke early the morning of my baby shower, the sunlight filtering through the pale curtains in a warm, honeyed glow that felt almost magical. At 35, I had spent years dreaming of this day, planning every detail from the embroidered tablecloth to the delicate sugar flowers on the tiered cake. My heart fluttered with a mix of joy and nervous anticipation as I slipped into the pale pink dress I had chosen, admiring the way it hugged my shoulders and flared gently at my waist. In the weeks since then, I had floated through appointments and preparations, each ultrasound adding a new brushstroke of reality to the portrait of my unborn daughter. Every morning I traced imaginary outlines of her tiny fingers on my growing belly. Marveling at the life stirring within me, I had imagined my sister Rachel standing beside me today, offering her usual bright smile and mischievous wink as she helped me pin corsages onto my friends and cousins, but part of me was braced for tension, for unspoken words hovering in the air like storm clouds. Rachel and I had always been close when we were younger, sharing a bedroom in our childhood home, and whispering secrets under the covers long past lights out. She was 3 years younger than me, with a sparkle in her eyes that could make any room feel brighter, and I took on the role of caretaker with pride. Over time, as we grew into adults, our paths diverged. I pursued a career in marketing and settled in our hometown while she chased adventures across the country, collecting stories about art galleries and distant cities. Despite our different lifestyles, I counted on her support during major milestones: my wedding, promotions at work, even the moment I decided to finally start a family. Still, I couldn't ignore a subtle shift in her tone over the past year, an edge I couldn't quite place. She congratulated me when I told her about the pregnancy, but her smile felt forced, her questions a shade too pointed. I blamed my own nerves, convinced that planning a shower had me imagining shadows where none existed. 2 weeks before the shower, I stumbled across a string of messages that flipped my world upside down. I had borrowed Rachel's phone and caught a snippet of a conversation with Mark, my fiancé, that made my blood run cold. They were discussing jokes I didn't recognize, referencing inside details only someone close could know. My hands shook as I scrolled back, but the lies were tangled in something bigger than a casual fling. Whispered secrets implicating Rachel in a betrayal I couldn't face. I waited until Mark returned home and confronted him, my voice cracking as I demanded the truth. His confession spilled out in waves of guilt and shame. He and Rachel had been seeing each other behind my back. My legs gave out under me, the room spinning as the weight of it all crashed in. I needed proof, something concrete to protect myself from further deception. So I took matters into my own hands, secretly arranging a paternity test to confirm whether the child in my womb bore his betrayal or remained untouched by the chaos. The morning of the shower blossomed into a perfect spring day, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of blooming magnolias through the backyard, where my family had strung pastel banners between the maple trees. Guests arrived in clusters, laughter drifting like music across the lawn as they admired the spread of savory quiches, fruit skewers, and my favorite coconut cupcakes. I greeted each friend with a smile, my cheeks aching from the stretch of happiness. I was determined to wear like armor. My mother fussed over every ribbon, adjusting bows on chairbacks while my father moved cool pitchers of lemonade closer to shaded tables. I only felt the thrum of anxiety when I glanced at the gate, waiting for Rachel to arrive. When she finally stepped through, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, she wore a casual floral sundress. She walked toward me with arms outstretched, and instinctively I opened mine to pull her into a hug that felt at once warm and tense, as though we were both holding on to memories that refused to let go. As our embrace lingered, the scent of her perfume blended with jasmine from the garden, and for a split second, I almost believed everything was as it should be. Then I felt the envelope tucked inside my clutch against my thigh, the weight of the paternity test results pressing against my skin like a promise I was almost too afraid to fulfill. Rachel's arms loosened around my shoulders and I took a steadying breath, lifting my head to meet her soft brown eyes. In that moment, the world fell silent around us. Balloons swayed overhead, soft chatter faded to a distant murmur, and I realized I held the power to shatter our shared past in my hand. I remembered crying alone on the bathroom floor, scanning lab reports by harsh light in the twilight hours. Now, under the canopy of pastel paper lanterns and hand-painted signs, I felt the truth unfurling in my grip. Gently, I let my fingers slip inside the envelope and withdrew the folded pages, bracing myself against the tide of emotion poised to wash over us both. Rachel's lips parted as I unfolded the paper, her expression flickering between hope and dread. The breeze carried the faint clink of glasses and the murmur of distant laughter, but our world in that moment felt contained within the static of our shared gaze. My pulse hammered in my ears as I scanned the lines until the letters formed an undeniable verdict. He was not the father. A cold clarity settled in my chest. Sharp as a shard of glass, Rachel's eyes glistened, tears pooling. As she gasped, "I'm so sorry," her voice barely above a whisper. She extended a trembling hand toward the document. As if touching it might erase our shared history of trust and betrayal. I hesitated before placing the paper between us on the lace-draped table. Around us, pastel petals twirled in the breeze, mocking the fragility of familial bonds laid bare by a few stark lines on a page. A hush fell over me, the laughter and music fading to a distant echo. I saw the wedding photographer freeze mid-shot, guests pause mid-conversation, their heads turning toward us with curious eyebrows raised, mortified. I steadied my breath and offered Rachel a tight nod before stepping back, my heels crunching. On the gravel path, each heartbeat felt like a drum announcing scandal. I retreated to the shade by the old oak tree, clutching my clutch like a lifeline as reality pressed in from all sides. I sat on a wooden bench beneath the tree, tracing the veins in its gnarled bark with shaking fingers. The heat of the afternoon sun beat down, and I realized I'd started sweating. My mind raced through every memory of Rachel and Mark, whispered phone calls, late-night text alerts, my fiance's sudden work trips. I felt sick, the betrayal twisting into physical pain that radiated through my spine. How could the people I trusted most conspire against me? Images from our childhood flooded me then, Rachel and I, chasing fireflies in our grandmother's backyard, giggling as we tried to catch glowing orbs in jam jars. We shared secrets on rickety bunk beds, promised to always protect each other from the world's cruelty. I remembered her tiny hands clutched in mine when storms rolled in, her eyes wide with awe at lightning striking distant fields. That Rachel seemed so long ago, replaced now by someone capable of such deep deception. I stood and brushed dirt from my skirt, determination hardening my resolve. I would not let shame or sorrow steal my moment. Not when I was mere hours away from celebrating new life. But I would also not pretend this hadn't happened. I rose and walked back toward the gathering, each step measured as if I were crossing a tightrope. I heard whispered speculations behind me, but I faced forward, pulling strength from the steady weight of the positive test held close to my heart. Approaching the table, I found Rachel alone now, trembling hands twisting a silk napkin. I cleared my throat gently to draw her attention. "This baby is mine," I said, voice steady. "And he or she deserves the truth. Their father abandoned us before he even knew they existed." Her chin quivered, tears staining her pale cheeks. I drew a slow breath. "If you want to stay in my life, mine, and this baby's, you must earn back my trust. That won't be easy." Her sobs were muffled, but no one came to comfort her. Instead, the guests had slowly drifted back to their conversations. As though recalling some forgotten appointment, I seized the momentary relief to quell my own tears, and redirected my attention toward the hosting table. A tray of macarons beckoned, and I forced a small smile as I re-engaged with my friends. I sliced a piece of cake for myself, savoring the sweet vanilla icing as though it held the power to soothe my restless heart. Across the lawn, I spotted my best friend, Allison, offering a sympathetic nod as she lifted her lemonade to her lips. Later, she would tell me she recognized the look in my eyes. I was protecting something precious. But in that instant, I simply let the frosting melt on my tongue and focused on the warmth radiating from the gathering. Balloons bobbing overhead, children chasing bubbles, and the soft murmur of endearing conversation. For one fleeting moment, I allowed myself to feel gratitude. Yet beneath the surface of normalcy, everything had changed. As soon as my guests began to dance to the faint notes of the string quartet, I felt an internal shift. I knew I'd have to face Rachel again, to establish firm boundaries around my life and my child's future. I turned toward her, finding her watching me from the edge of the crowd. Her eyes held regret, pleading for a chance. I nodded once, barely perceptible, then gestured toward the house's front porch. She followed meekly as I led the way, every step a reminder of how far we drifted. On the porch, I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of freshly cut grass and honeysuckle. I turned to face her. "I'm going to need time apart. I need to rebuild my world around my child, not the person who betrayed me." Her lip trembled, and she whispered, "Please, let me start by being there for you however you need." I closed my eyes, weighing her plea against the ache in my heart. In that long pause, the sun shifted westward, casting golden shadows across the porch floor. I felt the baby kick, a gentle reminder of hope amid the ruin. With a soft exhale, I placed my hand over Rachel's and said, "I can't promise forgiveness today, but I won't shut you out entirely. Show me you've changed, and perhaps someday I'll open the door wider." She nodded, tears of relief glistening as she embraced me once more. But even as we held each other, I knew the real work was just beginning. A few days after the shower, I woke before dawn again. Not to the soft thrill of anticipation, but to the hollow ache of uncertainty. The house was unusually quiet. as though the walls themselves were still reeling from the revelations that had shattered our family gathering. I tiptoed past the nursery, where the pale crib and the stack of unwashed blankets felt like a promise I wasn't yet ready to claim. Outside, the world moved forward. Spring blossoms unfurled on the dogwood trees. Robins chirped at the dew-dampened grass and cars hummed along the quiet cul-de-sac. Inside, I felt suspended in time, caught between fear and fierce resolve. That afternoon, Rachel showed up unannounced on my front porch, clutching a bouquet of daisies in one hand and a container of homemade chicken soup in the other. I hesitated before opening the door, my hand trembling on the knob. Her eyes were red-rimmed, guilt and hope etched into every line of her face. "I promised I'd be here," she said. "However you need me." I let her in, though I warned her we would keep to clear rules. No mention of Mark, no guilt-dripping apologies, no intrusions into my pregnancy appointments unless I explicitly invited her. She nodded, set the soup on the kitchen counter and offered a tentative smile. The aroma of rosemary and garlic was comforting, and for a moment, I allowed myself to imagine that maybe she could be a safe harbor after all. Over the next week, Rachel stuck to our fragile agreement. She brought groceries on Tuesdays, left meals on the counter, and retreated before I woke. I appreciated the effort, but every delivered casserole felt like a reminder of the trust she had shattered. Late-night insomnia left me restless. I mapped out worst-case scenarios in my mind, wondering what she'd do if she encountered my newborn alone in the house without me. In my solitude, I drafted boundaries in a notebook, plans for how I would navigate childcare, work, and the inevitable onslaught of family curiosity. Each line I wrote was a testament to my determination to protect my child, and a measure of the distance I felt growing between my sister and me. The morning of my first solo doctor's appointment since the revelation, I caught the sunrise from behind the steering wheel of my Volvo. I felt the baby move for the first time that day, a flutter in my side that reminded me why I was fighting so hard. On the drive, I debated asking Rachel to come, but I knew I needed to practice self-reliance. When I returned home, the driveway was empty. No car, no soup containers. I stepped inside to find a neatly written note on the kitchen island. "Thank you for letting me try. I won't overstep. Call me if you need anything." The apology, pared down to its barest form, felt both sincere and insufficient. That evening, I attended a prenatal support group at the community center, a room full of expectant mothers swapping stories about heartburn remedies and nursery themes. The facilitator guided us through a breathing exercise, and I felt a quiet solidarity with women whose struggles were not mine, but whose resilience mirrored my own. One mother, Maya, whose daughter was due 2 weeks after mine, offered me a knowing glance when I admitted I felt anxious about being alone. She squeezed my hand and said, "We've all been there." For the first time in days, I felt seen as more than a betrayed sister. I was simply a woman preparing to become a mother, vulnerable and hopeful. Returning home, I found Rachel waiting in the living room, her arms folded, eyes downcast. "I know I crossed a line," she began, "but I thought you might need help organizing the nursery." My heart clenched. "We agreed no surprises," I said quietly. She nodded, tears brimming. "I'm sorry. Your baby is my niece or nephew. I wanted to do something." I recognized the earnest longing in her voice, the same spark of protectiveness she had shown me as a child. Yet my anger flared. "I need to choose when I'm ready for help, not when you decide I need it." Her shoulders sagged and she bit her lip. "I understand," she whispered. "I'm trying." In that moment, I saw both our fractures and our foundation, the codependent bond we had relied on since childhood. I closed my eyes, inhaled deeply, and let out a slow breath. "I know," I replied. "I'm proud of you for showing up, but I need to rebuild trust step by step, on my terms." We sat in silence, the late afternoon light filtering through the windows, painting her hair gold. I felt the steady rhythm of my baby's kicks, as though the child was encouraging me to forgive, to move forward, but not to forget. Over the following days, we established a new routine. Rachel would text me in the morning with a simple question: "Do you need anything?" and wait for my response before acting. Sometimes I needed nothing at all, and I would reply accordingly. Other times, I asked her to pick up extra diapers or to switch the washer. Load. Each request I made, however small, felt like a vote of confidence in my own strength. With every task she completed, I measured her sincerity and my own capacity for acceptance. One evening, she showed up with a stack of children's books, classics I had loved as a child: Goodnight Moon, Where the Wild Things Are, Charlotte's Web. I ran my fingers across the spines, and memories of Rachel and me reading under the covers in the dead of night washed over me. She said, "I thought it was time to fill this room with stories we both cherish." The gesture felt both nostalgic and hopeful. I pulled her into a hug, this time without hesitation or guardedness. I could feel her relief, and I realized that the sister I once knew still existed beneath the fear and the mistakes. As the sun set, I arranged the books on the shelf, careful to place our childhood favorites at arm's reach. Standing back, I saw the nursery transform from an empty room into a tapestry of shared memories and future promises. Rachel watched me, eyes shining with cautious optimism. I turned to her and said, "Thank you for trusting me to guide this process." And in that moment, I felt the possibility of rebuilding something stronger than before, a family tempered by fire, bound by honesty and the unbreakable love of a sister. I knew there would be setbacks ahead, but as I closed the door on the nursery, I also closed a chapter of pain. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, I allowed myself to hope.